Okay, the name of your game should have been Rogue 2D. Rogue 2D. I'm putting a period on for mine so I know which one it is because I've already made a Rogue 2D for last period. So yours should be Rogue 2D, and it needs to be a 2D game. Make sure you check that. If you do not check 2D game, you're going to be completely lost because your game is not going to be configured appropriately. It's going to be configured for a 3D game, in which case you're going to have a lot of problems. You're going to have to start over. You want to turn on Enable Analytics so you can push it up to your cloud to save it if you need to move seats. And I really don't care where you save it. You can save it on your desktop. You can save it in your documents. You can save it wherever you want on your folder, on your computer. Right now it defaulted to wherever you saved Rollerball. So once you have done all those things, go ahead and create project. I'm going to turn off my analytics because I don't need to push it up. Yours should remain on. Go ahead and click create project. And now you're going to wait for it to set up a two-dimensional game project layout. If you get this new version of Unity Editor, just go ahead and click the red button. We're not going to update until they're on version 0.2.
We exit out?
Yeah, just go ahead and hit the red X and exit out of it. If you get any errors, just go ahead and go over to your console and clear them. So now we have a game that's set up for 2D canvas. In your assets folder, you need to make 5 additional folders. So we're going to right click and create folder. And the first one's going to be underscore animations.
Capital A.
Capital A. I'm going to put a list up in a second. I'm going to create them. Just follow along the best. The next one should be AC, like air conditioning, underscore AC. Then the next one, underscore scenes. And then scripts. And then prefabs. And here's the list. So that's the list of the folders that we're creating in our assets.
Does it have to be in that order?
It's going to alphabetize itself anyway. Regardless of what order you put it in, it's going to alphabetize itself. It's not in scene comes before script, so when you actually type it, it's going to jump ahead of it. So it doesn't matter what order you put them in when you create the folders. So now we need the assets that go along with this particular game. So you need to go to your asset store and type in Rogue 2D. Oops, I forgot to put a space between my Rogue 2D. So, if I click free, then it'll isolate it to the 2 that we're going to use, or excuse me, the 1 that we're going to use, and it's Rogue, it's 2D Rogue like. So it's the one with the green guy with the beard. That's the one you want to click.
Mine doesn't show the results.
Yeah, mine doesn't either.
and then you have to download and import it. If you're not seeing results, that's because you made Rogue 2D one word. It's 2 words. Rogue space 2D. You didn't spell Rogue right then. So you need to download and import it. I've already downloaded, so it's going to import. So once you have imported it, it creates a bunch of new folders. There's one that says complete game. Click that one so you can see the contents of it. You will see the scene called complete game. We're going to double click that one, and that's going to load the scene. Now you'll notice that there are no major amounts of things in here, but it actually contains the complete game because it's what's called a procedurally generated game. So it randomly generates the play area. So now what I want you to do is, once you've got into this scene, press the play button and go ahead and discover what this game actually is. The highest the number of days anyone has reached is 19. Go ahead and hit your play button and play. The first thing we need to do is we're going to go File, New Scene. And then we're going to File, Save Scene As, and put it in our Scenes folder. And we're going to call it Main, as in the street. Main, like Main Street. Main. It should be going in your Scenes folder. So now my scene should be called Main, and that scene should be in my Scenes folder. If you put it in your assets and it's sitting out here, then drag it into your if it's not in your Scenes folder, drag it into your Scenes folder wherever it ended up. So once you have your new scene created called Main, go to that folder called Complete Game, click on it, and press the delete key that's above your arrows on your keyboard.
Click on Complete Game.
And you're going to delete it. I believe you can right click and delete it as well. But delete that scene, that folder. If you do not delete that folder with the complete game as we're building it, you're going to get all kind of error codes and you're going to be unable to compile your game. You must delete that folder. Now we're going to create the animations for the player and the enemy units. We're going to use a sprite sheet that's been provided to us. So the first thing we need to do is go to the menus bar, click Game Object, Create Empty. And we're going to rename that Player. So you're going to go to your Game Objects, Create Empty, and rename that to Player. The next thing we want to do is there's a folder called Sprites in your assets. So in your sprite sheet folder is this sheet that has all the images for the animations for our game. Remember, this is a two-dimensional game, so your animations are kind of like a flip book. So what they've done is giving you a sheet. If you click the little plus, the play sign, it'll open it up, and it's got each frame of different animations. So this first set is idle, and then we have chop down here, and then finally player hit. So what we're going to do is select all of these by clicking the first one, holding shift on your keyboard, selecting the last one, and that will select them all together. So click the first one, hold shift on your keyboard, click the last one, and you click hold and drag that into player. Then it's going to ask you to name it. What is that animation called? It's called player idle. Player idle. And we're going to save it. It should have been called player idle. So you were supposed to left click on the first one, hold shift, right click on the last one, and drag it into player. Once you do that, it will automatically ask you to save it. Save it as player idle. Now notice what it created. It created two separate items. This created two files. One was the animation that we just created. The other is the controller of animations. These two files need to be stored correctly. So we created a AC, which is for animated controller, which is this, and we created animations, which is for this one. So we need to take this and drag it into animations. So player idle went into animations, and player goes into AC for our animated controllers. So player goes into AC, player idle goes into animations. So we're going to create our second one, which is player chop, by clicking the first one. And the second one, we're going to drag them into player, and it's called player chop. Then we're going to drag this into animations. So our last one we need to create for the player is our player hit. And it's at the bottom on the second to last ribbon. Click the first one, hold shift, hit the second one, drag it up to player. And this one's going to be called player hit. And once again, move that to animations. So, if we want to see what this looks like, you can press play, and you'll see the player animate. It looks like he's hyperventilating. So what we can do is we can slow down that animation. And we can do that by going into this AC folder and our player animation controller, double clicking it, and it's going to bring up our actual animation states. So those animations we just created, this controls their state, meaning what state they are in the game. We can use a script to control this. So right now it says when we enter, when we press the play button, it's going to go straight to player idle.
So we fix it up.
So we're going to select idle, and we can come over, and this is the animation speed. We're going to cut that in half. So we're going to go 0.5 on the animation. Then we can hit play, and we will notice that his speed has slowed down quite a bit. So we're going to keep that one, go back to the scene. So now we need to select the player. Now we need to select our player, and in the inspector panel we need to make some changes. The first thing is we need to tag our player as a player. So under tag, where it says untagged, we need to change it to player. Now you'll notice that they have food, exit, enemy, and soda, which they added. It was part of the Rogue 2. Those are not there. Remember, to add, anytime you need to add a tag, you just click add tag, and then it allows you to put them in. But you can see that these 4 are not default, meaning they were added. Respawn, finish, editor only, main camera, and player and game controller are made with every game, those tags. So we're going to choose player. So our player is tagged as a player. We also need to change the layer. And we're going to change the layer to blocking layer. So we're going to change our tag to player and our layer to blocking layer. And what that's going to do is everything that has collisions where they can collide with each other are going to be on that layer. So it's kind of like when you're working in Photoshop or any other program where you have layers where you can put pictures on top of other pictures or artwork. It's the same thing in 2D games. It looks for layers for rendering. It looks for layers for collisions. So it knows what things are on the same layers. So like we have games where they're underground and it looks like he's going through a cave because he's going behind some animation or some of the wall backgrounds and in front of others, is because they've created that layer for him to slide through. The last piece we need to do on this is the sorting layer. Now, the sorting layer has the floor, which is the background, items, which are things that you can pick up, and then units. Units for this game is going to be the enemy and the players.
So what do we click on?
So we're going to choose our sorting layer to units. So the changes you should have made on the player after the animation, we're tagging it as a player in the transform, changing the layer to blocking layer, and then down in the sprite renderer, meaning how is it going to render, it should be rendered with other units. So what that's going to do is allow us to pass over things. So for player, we need to add 2 components before we're done today. The first component we need to add is a 2D box collider. So box collider 2D. It has to be 2D because we're doing a 2D game. So we needed box collider 2D added, and we're going to change the size a little bit. Actually, we'll change it when we come back. Let's just add the last piece and we'll be done for the day. So we're going to add a rigid body, but this time we're going to use a 2D rigid body. In our last game we used a 3D. For this one we're going to use a 2D rigid body. Once you've done that, you can go to save scene, and you can go ahead and exit the program.
They see that?